Heavenly Father, the songwriter says, if we ever needed the Lord before, we sure do need him now. And if there was ever a time that song rings true, it's right now. We need him today. We need somebody somewhere to wake up and realize that, yes, we need each other to survive. We need somebody somewhere to realize that even though they were elected by a populace, that does not mean that their ideas run that populace. The fact of the matter is they are subject to that populace. We have to realize that because if we are men and we have a woman and we're blessed enough to have a woman, that we have no power over that woman. The only power we have is the power of love. And so today I pray for love in these streets. I pray for the drying of tears in these streets. I pray that everybody might realize that it could be them if they don't stand up. They can't keep pulling their shades down. They've got to open their windows, open their doors, step out on the porch and cause somebody to realize we're taking this country back, this city back, our morals back, our ideals back. God, help us today. And in all that we say, and in all that we do, and in all that we think, may God be glorified. May the Spirit be edified, and Satan be horrified. In Jesus' name, amen, amen, and amen.
Dana Lass was a pharmacist. She was a doctor. She would like you to know that, and everyone.
Okay, so we have just a few more speakers, and then we'll do a moment of silence. It's extremely important for us in this gun violence prevention movement to edify and uplift the voices of the youth. And they are some of the demographics that are mostly impacted, and we saw them in a powerful force this year. From March for Our Lives to Good Kids, Mad City, pushing in the mayoral elections and in the municipal elections coming up. So I do want to go ahead and pass the microphone quickly to one of the youth organizers, and then we'll go into the final speakers.
Hi, my name is Alicia Bolton. I'm from the organization Good Kids, Mad City. When I first heard about the shooting that happened, I was personally disheartened, just because as somebody who lives in an area where gun violence is so prominent, we're the community that I reside in, to find out a place where people go to be healed and to be safe is a place that now violence has attacked it also. I also think that it's important to talk about the reason why the shooting happened in the first place, because it was an act of domestic violence. And I think this is something that normally gets tossed under the rug when it comes to issues of gun violence in general, that a lot of the reasons why sometimes this is triggered is because a man feels like he has total control and power over a woman's life. And so they come in and they kill the woman when they decide to leave, or when they feel like they don't have to be in such a toxic relationship anymore. And this is what happened. And sadly, other people lost their lives to this act of violence as well. And I feel very disheartened for the families who are here of these people today, because I can relate to this so strongly, losing somebody that is here to put on earth to save other people's lives just because a man felt like it was his right to take away a woman's life for not wanting to be with him. And as a black woman who knows that there's over 50% of domestic violence cases that happens to black women, and that we are 6% of this population. So to know that 50% of domestic violence abuse cases happen to people who look like me, and that people die because of stuff that happens like this, it's just very disheartening, because it shows that people do not care about us. And it's important that when we speak about issues on gun violence, that we highlight the ideas of toxic masculinity and domestic violence, because it's the reason why it's happening today. And I'm a part of an organization that advocates for the removal of this all in general. Good Kids Mad City is about not only just attacking gun violence, but violence and how it all intersects. The act of gun violence and how that can ties in with toxic masculinity, and that happens to black women, women of color, trans women, all this other issues that come together as one. And I just think that it's important that we highlight and emphasize the importance of, that we highlight the importance of what it's like to be a woman in a life where you feel like you cannot live without being threatened. To be a woman in a life where if you feel as if you reject somebody, you will get shot or you will get stabbed, or that if you try to live your life, a man will come up to a hospital and kill you where you work because they couldn't accept the fact that you decided to move on. And it's important that we talk about these issues when we talk about gun violence, because this is something that affects us, something that affects me, something that affects people who are in this organization that look like me on a daily basis. And I think that it's important that we talk about this. I'm from Good Kids Mad City. We are going to be doing a peace march to advocate for reasons just like this, to advocate for reasons about gun violence. And we're doing it this Saturday, November 24th. We're going to be from 51st and King Drive all the way to 63rd and King Drive. Areas where people who look like me, people who are affected by gun violence, who don't get the chance to stand up and speak about this, we're going to be walking through these communities. So I appreciate and love every single person who came out here tonight to show love to the people who lost their lives. And I hope that we don't have to have things like this happen every other day, and we don't have to go to funerals every single day because of gun violence, and that through this act of support and loving one another, we can come together and finally put a stop to all these things that are happening. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Delia Ramirez. I was recently elected as state representative in the 4th House District, but that's not why I'm here. For 17 years, I was a nonprofit. I've been a nonprofit, and for 13 years of that, I ran a domestic violence shelter, among other programs in my community. And as I stand here, I realize that the last time I stood at the Federal Plaza was about a month ago with many of you at another prayer vigil. And the question that keeps going through my mind over and over and over is, when is enough truly enough? When is enough truly enough? And so I ask you to look around to the people that are around you. Look to the left. Look to the right. And I want to make sure that we make a commitment to do whatever it takes so that we don't have to be here in a month at another prayer vigil. Let us not forget that Dr. O'Neill, the Officer Samuel Jimenez, the pharmacist and doctor, I got nervous about her Dana Les, did not lose their life in vain. And that there are thousands of people right now living in silence out of fear to talk about the domestic violence that they're living. Let us not forget and try to remember the poor just on holidays, because poor people are poor throughout the year and the needs are there every single day. So what I want to tell you is that I ran with a commitment that if it takes me just 2 years and I'm only elected for 2 years, and damn it, that is okay. But my commitment is to make sure that policies start changing. We need people that are going to have the political courage and the will to say enough is enough and not be beholden to whoever's funding their damn campaign. We need people that are willing to say that I stand here with my community, and that is far more important than what one person or another person says, because we are sick and tired of having to go to another prayer vigil. We have to fund domestic violence shelters, programs, prevention, and we have to fund mental health services in our schools. There is no reason that one social worker is supposed to provide support to 1,100 students in the Chicago public school system. That is criminal. And so my commitment to you, and I want you to record me and play it over and over if I try to and someone forget it, is that I'm going to go in hard in the state legislature, because I worked really hard to get elected the right way. And I ask you that after Thanksgiving or even tonight, you call your elected officials who are now grateful that they got elected or reelected, and you remind them that we are no longer going to continue to accept prayer vigils because they don't have the political courage and will to do their job. We need gun control reform right now. We need to fund domestic violence programs right now. We need to ensure that mental health services are a priority, not secondary, because we're just like 2 blocks away from the Board of Trade, and they get all the tax write-offs in the world. They need to be taxed so that we have the services we need. That is a commitment I have, but that is a commitment that every single one of those 118 legislators in the state of Illinois, our 50 aldermen, and every single state senator must make, and you need to help me remind them every day. Thank you.
Good evening. We're here because of violence. Our country was founded on violence. I'm here because the violence is very personal to me. My name is Sabina Mustafa, and I'm here representing Illinois for All. We're a multiracial freedom fighter organization. My sister, for 27 years, was in a domestic violence situation, and I thought I was going to get the call that Dr. O'Neill's family got. That she would be shot by a partner who constantly threatened her and her children. This is personal to me. I sought out resources, Apnakar, which helps South Asian women, the Hamdard that helps Muslim women. There are resources, but we have a culture of violence. Violence is in our past, it's in our present, but it does not have to be our future. We have to close a boyfriend loophole in gun legislation. We need to extend and fully fund the Violence Against Women Act. This is our country. We have to take it back. I just read as I was coming here that Dr. O'Neill, someone told her she couldn't be a doctor. Only 2% of physicians are black women. And we talk about maternal mortality amongst black women being much worse. That is a soul who could have saved lives. Please remember Dr. O'Neill, Dana Less, and Officer Samuel Jimenez, and let's stop the cycle of violence. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Wow, this crowd is just getting larger and larger. I'm Carol Gall, and I'm the Executive Director of Sarazen. And we are a domestic violence agency based in Oak Park, but we serve Chicago and the western suburbs. And on behalf of the entire domestic violence community, we celebrate the lives of Dr. O'Neill and Dr. Less and Officer Jimenez. And we also mourn with their families this week. It is an unfortunate reality of domestic violence that domestic violence can be fatal. There are far too many victims who have lost their lives, along with innocent bystanders in our community, due to the impacts of domestic violence, and it needs to end. We all have to take action to end domestic violence and to end violence in our communities. Domestic violence is the single leading cause of injury and death for women of all socioeconomic, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds in the United States. Let that sink in for a minute. It is the single leading cause of injury and death for all women in the United States. How is that possible? That in our country, more women are injured and losing their lives due to something that is completely preventable. Women are 2.5 times more likely to be murdered by an intimate partner with a firearm than they are by a stranger. It's estimated that 4.5 million women who are alive today have been threatened with a gun by an intimate partner, and 900,000 of those women have been shot. These numbers are staggering when you look at it. The connection between domestic violence, gun violence, and community violence is huge. And we all need to partner together and come together to end violence in our communities and to end violence against women. Dr. O'Neill did what all of us do on a daily basis. She lived her life. She went to work to do what she loved, to help people, to save other people's lives. Unfortunately, domestic violence doesn't just stay at home. Perpetrators of domestic violence don't walk out the door and leave their controlling and abusive tactics of power and control at the door. Instead, they take it with them, and they look for opportunities to continue to harass their victims in the community, in their schools, in their churches, and in their workplaces. It's astounding how many people go to work every single day with the fear and anxiety over them of how much am I going to be harassed today by my perpetrator. It's got to stop. I also just wanted to briefly touch on the victim blaming rhetoric that continues to just penetrate our society. The why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't she leave is such an ignorant statement, and it's completely naive. People don't understand that leaving is the most dangerous time for a victim. Leaving takes safety planning. Leaving takes courage. Staying is a safety tool for most victims. They stay because that's what's safest for them and their families. They leave when they know that they have secured the best options to do so. Our advocates, our victim advocates, our domestic violence victim advocates work every day with victims to ensure that they know what their options are. They know their rights. They spend weeks and months and sometimes years planning with them around safety and getting them to a place where they feel that it's safe for them and their family to leave. And just because you walk out the door and, as Dr. O'Neill did, break off an engagement, break up a relationship, the violence doesn't stop. The harassment doesn't stop. There's no guarantees of that. And for many people who have children and families with a perpetrator of violence, the abuse continues for years. So we need to do more together. We need to partner together. Together we are strong. Together we can end violence in our communities. I encourage each and every one of you, as the speakers before you have, to take action. To take action in your everyday lives. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, a day where all of us hopefully are coming together with family in our community for a day of thanks. But it's also a wonderful opportunity to have conversation around the tragic events of this week. To let other people know that you believe that violence is never justified, that you believe that everybody deserves to live in a safe home and a safe community, that you model healthy relationships, not only for youth, but for other peers and adults, and that you are going to partner with all of us to end domestic violence and gun violence. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to those of you that organized this wonderful vigil.
Hi, everybody. This is actually my first time ever speaking at a vigil. I'm so sorry, Dr. O'Neill. I'm so sorry that happened to you. My name is May Whiteside, and I am the founder of Flourish PAC, which is a national organization working to elect women of color on local and national offices. And I just want us as black women, I'm talking to you, black women, if this happened to her, how many of us is this happening to? Real talk. Like real talk. We need to use this tragedy to talk about this in our churches. We need to talk about this in our sororities. We need to talk about this at work. This needs to be a conversation that we can have and not be ashamed of what is happening to us. I will say, I'm being real out here. I was in a domestic violence situation, and my sister pulled that fool up off of me. I'm just being real. She pulled him off of me. It could have went a lot worse when he was taking his knuckle and drilling it into my temple. That could have went a whole nother way, and I actually could not even be standing here. So I just want to say we need to use this tragedy. Talk about domestic violence, gun violence. Gun violence happens to black women in relationships a lot. A lot of these guys out here carrying weapons, and they will use it on you. If you disagree with them, they can pull it out and snap on you in a heartbeat. And I just want us black women, women of color, to start talking about all of these situations that happen to us. It's not fair. And again, I'm so sorry that what happened to her. But let's use this as a rallying point to eliminate domestic violence, and let's get something strong on the books about gun control. As a small business owner myself, I need to be talking about domestic violence in my business too. It might be some women that's not saying nothing, and I need to know about it. So I learned a lot from this situation. This could have happened in my place of employment, and I want to be ready. when that happens. I want to be that conscious business owner that knows that domestic violence, it happened to me, it could easily happen to anybody that worked for me. And I need to be on top of that ASAP. So I just want to say I'm so glad all of you all came out here. This is my first time ever speaking out loud about this. But sometimes it takes tragedies like this for you to come up, to come out of your shell and talk about what has happened to you. And maybe somebody watching me or listening to me right now going, you know what? She right. I didn't talk about this either. But let me start talking about this to my friends, my mama, my sister, my brothers, my sorority sisters, my friends at work, my community members. Let's just start talking about this on a regular. And so I'm glad you all have joined us. And again, my name is May Whiteside. I'm the founder of Flourish PAC. But one of our issues is domestic violence, and I appreciate you all.
Okay, so we're coming up on our last speaker, and I strategically made sure that this was the last speaker when I organized this because she's a doctor. She works in the trauma unit, and I want the words that she says to be the last things that you all hear as you leave today. Because the truth is, we know that last week the National Rifle Association said that doctors need to stay in their lane. This is their lane. When they're saving lives and someone comes in with a gunshot wound, they are the first line of defense. And so I do want to go ahead and allow Dr. Subra Root to come up and speak. And this will be our last speaker. And I do want you guys to just stay momentarily just for last comments and also for the moment of silence as we pay homage to the 3 fallen members of the shooting.
My name's Mamta Swaroop. I'm a trauma surgeon at Northwestern. I live in Chicago. I've been here for the last decade. I can still hear the cries and feel the tears wet on my scrub top, muffled into my chest, of innumerable mothers who've lost their sons or daughters to gun violence. The walk to the trauma bay to see their child one last time, it's the longest walk. Everyone in the emergency room stops and stares. I hold the mother's clammy, nervous hand as we near the trauma bay, and her breathing quickens. I remind her, just one kiss, no touching. How do I explain to her that her son or daughter is now evidence? As we walk in, the cries and the shrills tear through the silence of the trauma bay. I watch her walk over to her child, and I turn around to give her some semblance of privacy. And I need a minute to myself, to remind myself I did everything I could. If only he or she didn't get shot. We're gathered here today to honor the lives of Dr. Tamara O'Neill, Officer Samuel Jimenez, and Dr. Dana Less. Not just with thoughts and prayers, but as a united Chicago, recognizing the need to find solutions to this public health issue that plagues the U.S. and plagues Chicago: gun violence. We must all leave our individualities and egos aside and realize how much we actually have in common with one another, our humanity. And consider this: a bullet will never know your race, and if you were for a gun or if you were anti-gun. The presence of a gun in an intimate partner violence situation increases the risk of homicide 500%. 25% of all women have been the victim of intimate partner violence. And so many women, as you've heard, their stories are untold. The NRA called out to doctors